Charisma Mebban, 21, was gunned down at a Durham, North Carolina gas station, a sudden act of public violence that left the community shaken. In Dallas, 35-year-old Dishai Stevenson was found shot in the chest on a roadside. Her husband later charged with her murder. 2 women, 2 cities, and 2 fatal encounters reveal how danger can strike anywhere. Subscribe for full story as we uncover the tragedies behind these murders. A 21-year-old woman stops at a gas station in Durham, North Carolina, to refuel her car. Within moments, she's gunned down in what appears to be a deliberate act of violence. The surveillance cameras record a quick but fatal attack. By the time emergency services arrive, the woman is unresponsive. She is pronounced dead shortly after at a nearby hospital. Her name is Charisma Mebban. She had no criminal record. She wasn't involved in drugs, gangs, or street violence. Her only crime was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Or was it? Within 24 hours, police arrest 2 suspects. They are brothers, 23-year-old Jaquez Reddick and 18-year-old Tracy Crawford. Both have no prior criminal history. They lived at the same address. Neither attempts to flee. The arrests are swift. The charges are serious. First-degree murder. The case raises a series of questions. Why was Charisma targeted? What was the motive behind the shooting? Why did 2 brothers with no criminal record execute a killing at a public gas station under surveillance? Charisma's death comes just 2 years after her brother Tyra Gaddis was shot and killed in another case of unresolved gun violence. Her family, already broken, now faces another devastating loss. The public is left confused. No robbery. No argument, no known connection, no known motive. As the investigation unfolds, the community watches silently. The prosecution builds a case. The defense remains quiet. And through it all, no clear reason emerges. This is a story of how a quick gas station stop became a murder scene. This is a story of a family trapped in a cycle of gun violence. This is a case of Charisma Mebban and the unanswered questions still echoing through Durham. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's begin. Charisma T. Mebban was a 21-year-old woman residing in Durham, North Carolina. She was a young adult navigating early adulthood in the city, with rising concerns about community violence. Charisma had ties to higher education. She was either a student or an aspiring student affiliated with North Carolina Central University, NCCU, one of the prominent HBCUs in the state. Though her academic record remains private, she was known to be involved in her studies and projected a future aligned with personal growth. Those who knew Charisma described her as supportive and energetic. She had a public image rooted in community connection, especially with her family. Her appearance on social media reflects a young woman actively engaged with friends and relatives. Her documented behavior did not suggest any involvement in criminal activity, gang-related associations, or known disputes with law enforcement. Charisma came from a family already impacted by violent loss. In 2020, her brother, Tyra Gaddis, was shot and killed in Durham in a separate incident. His murder remains unresolved. Charisma's death, therefore, was the second violent death in the family within a 2-year span. These 2 tragedies suggest an escalating pattern of victimization affecting the same household. The Mebban family had already entered the public sphere as survivors of gun violence following Tyra's death. Charisma's killing amplified their presence in advocacy efforts. Though they lacked high-profile media attention, their internal documentation of loss placed Charisma in a broader pattern of recurring community violence in Durham. The incident occurred on Friday, October 7, 2022, at approximately 8:55 p.m. Charisma Mebban was alone at the time. She stopped at a local Valero gas station, which operates under the name Royals Mini Mart, located near the intersection of Hardy Street and Cheek Road in Durham. This gas station is situated in a part of the city known for frequent public foot traffic and late-night operations. The visit to the gas station was routine. There are no records indicating that Charisma had planned to meet anyone there. Surveillance footage later confirmed that she arrived alone. Her intent was to refuel her vehicle, an everyday activity that would not have raised any security flags. As Charisma exited her vehicle or remained nearby, reports indicate that she was suddenly approached or ambushed. She was shot without warning. There were no signs of a verbal argument or altercation preceding the gunfire. The attack appeared deliberate. It was executed swiftly, and the suspects fled the scene immediately. Multiple surveillance cameras were present at the Valero gas station. These systems captured the shooting and the vehicle associated with the suspects. Witnesses nearby reported hearing the gunshots and called emergency services. First responders arrived within minutes and transported Charisma to a nearby hospital. Despite efforts to save her, she was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The medical report confirmed that the fatal injury was caused by gunshot wounds. There were no other injuries or defensive wounds recorded. The incident lasted only a few seconds but resulted in a complete loss of life. According to the Durham Police Department, surveillance footage captured the events surrounding the incident. The video shows Charisma at the gas station, unaccompanied. There were no signs of robbery or any physical or verbal altercation before the shots were fired. Law enforcement confirmed that the attack happened swiftly and without confrontation. There was no theft, no argument, and no warning. Charisma was shot on site and left at the location. The assailants fled immediately after the shooting. Bystanders at the gas station called emergency services, and paramedics arrived on the scene. Charisma was found unresponsive and suffering from gunshot wounds. She was immediately transported to a nearby hospital, where medical personnel attempted life-saving procedures. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Initial crime scene investigations did not recover any weapons. No firearm was left at the scene, and no shell casings were reported in early press releases. Investigators secured surveillance footage, interviewed witnesses, and began processing the gas station and surrounding area for any additional evidence. Forensic teams documented the scene and collected digital surveillance as potential evidence. The absence of a struggle, theft, or argument created a unique profile for the case. It was classified as a deliberate and targeted attack, though no motive had been publicly established at that point. Authorities stated that the rapid capture of suspects within 24 hours was made possible by security footage and neighborhood leads. Less than 24 hours after Charisma Mebban's death, Durham police arrested 2 individuals in connection with shooting. The suspects were identified as Jaquez Reddick, age 23, and Tracy Crawford, age 18. Both were apprehended without incident and charged with first-degree murder. Police records show that both Reddick and Crawford resided at the same address in Durham. They were believed to be brothers or stepbrothers, though no official familial relationship was publicly confirmed. Neither suspect had a prior criminal history. Their clean records and lack of prior charges made the arrest more puzzling to investigators and the public. No indication of motive was provided at the time of the arrest. The Durham Police Department did not release information suggesting any prior connection between the suspects and the victim. Charisma Mebban's family stated publicly that they had no knowledge of either individual before the incident. Authorities moved quickly to charge both suspects with first-degree murder. There was no information provided suggesting gang affiliation, prior disputes, or financial motives. Law enforcement also did not announce whether the suspect had confessed, denied involvement, or remained silent following their arrest. The arrest was processed through the Durham County Detention Center. Both suspects were held without bond. Court documents listed first-degree murder as a charge for both men, indicating premeditation. Investigators stated that the surveillance footage from the gas station was instrumental in identifying the suspects, but the exact content of the footage have not been released publicly. No firearms were recovered during the arrest, according to initial police press releases. It is not publicly known whether weapons were located at a later stage, or if forensic analysis tied any ballistic evidence to the suspects. The rapid nature of the arrest, combined with the clean records of both suspects, left many questions unanswered. The suspect's motive and reasoning for targeting Charisma Mebban remain unclear in official reports. After the arrest of Jaquez Reddick and Tracy Crawford, charges were filed immediately in the Durham County criminal justice system. Both men were formally charged with first-degree murder. The charge implies that investigators believe the killing was intentional and premeditated. Both suspects were ordered to be held in custody without bond. No bail hearings were granted, and both men remained in jail pending trial. At the time of arrest and arraignment, no public defenders or private attorneys had made statements regarding defense strategy. Information on the defense counsel remains limited. No official filings from the defense team have been made public. The prosecution has also remained quiet on details of evidence beyond the surveillance footage. However, officials have stated that digital video will be central to the prosecution's case. To date, no plea deals have been offered or accepted. Neither suspect has entered a guilty plea, and there has been no indication of a potential reduced sentence in exchange for cooperation. The case has not reached the trial stage and remains open in court records. Investigators have not released a motive. They have not suggested whether the shooting was random, targeted, or part of a larger dispute. No communication records, phone logs, or digital messages between the suspects and victim have been disclosed. Surveillance footage from the gas station remains a core component of the case. According to court statements, this video was key to identifying the suspects and may serve as primary visual evidence. It is unknown whether additional footage from surrounding businesses or traffic cameras was collected. As of the most recent updates, the case remains active in the Durham County court system. No trial dates have been announced publicly. Pre-trial motions and evidence discovery procedures are ongoing. The prosecution has made no public comment on potential witnesses, forensic evidence, or timelines for trial. The lack of a clear motive, combined with the absence of a public confession or explanation from the suspects, has added to the mystery surrounding the case. The family of Charisma Mebban has expressed interest in pursuing justice, but has not commented on the legal developments in detail. Her death marks the second loss of a child to gun violence for Mebban family, following the unsolved 2020 murder of her brother, Tyra Gaddis. The resolution of the case depends on the outcome of the ongoing legal process. The suspects remain in custody, the motive remains unknown, and the community continues to await answers. Why would two young men with no criminal history commit a public shooting without apparent motive? Could there be an unknown relationship between the suspects and Charisma Mebban that has not been disclosed? What details could surveillance footage reveal beyond identification? Should the gas station security footage be made public for transparency? How often are suspects charged without a clearly stated motive? Why has there been limited media coverage and public legal commentary on this case? What impact does the lack of recovered weaponry have on building a prosecution case? Could this be a case of mistaken identity or targeted retaliation for a connection the victim did not realize she had? The death of 21-year-old Charisma Mebban was not the first time her family faced the harsh reality of gun violence. In 2020, they lost her older brother, Tyra Gaddis, to a separate shooting incident in Durham, North Carolina. His murder remains part of a broader pattern of unresolved gun-related crimes in the area. The family was already navigating the psychological and logistical aftermath of that first loss when Charisma was killed at a gas station on October 7, 2022. This second tragedy deepened the trauma and placed the family back into public focus. In the wake of Charisma's murder, Chanakwa Spencer, her stepsister, spoke publicly to media outlets. Spencer described Charisma as a genuine, respectful individual who was known for her sincerity and positivity. According to Spencer's account, Charisma avoided trouble and had clear life goals. Her presence was considered stabilizing in the family, especially for younger relatives. Spencer used her platform not only to discuss Charisma's character, but also to promote a message of faith, prayer, and nonviolence. She called for communal healing and advocated for an increase in spiritual intervention, emphasizing the role of church engagement and collective prayer in combating the rising violence in Durham. Following the murder, the Mebban family began conversations around forming a nonprofit organization. This organization would aim to focus on youth mentorship, conflict de-escalation training, and resources for grieving families. Although the nonprofit had not yet officially launched, the family indicated a long-term commitment to advocacy. The goal is to prevent other families from experiencing similar loss through public awareness, education, and preventative community work. The family has also participated in memorial events. Charisma was listed and honored on the National Gun Violence Memorial, a national online archive that documents lives lost to gun-related homicide in the United States. Her inclusion signals not only recognition of her death, but also an attempt by her family to make sure she is remembered beyond headlines. Additionally, the family has attended public candlelight vigils and community-based discussions on violence in Durham. At these events, the Mebban family has taken an active role, choosing visibility over silence. Their participation has included reading scripture, leading prayers, and sharing personal stories about Charisma's upbringing and aspirations. Through interviews and public appearances, the family has made it clear that their response will not be passive. They have established a pattern of public grieving with a strategic intent to bring visibility to the issue of youth gun deaths in Durham and to pressure local officials to act with urgency. Charisma's family has also requested privacy at certain stages of the investigation, but maintained communication with local advocates, students, and faith leaders. Their approach reflects a balance between mourning and mobilization, which has made them central figures in local anti-violence efforts. The community response to Charisma's murder was marked by a mixture of confusion and growing concern. Public reaction intensified after the arrest of two suspects, 23-year-old Jaquez Reddick and 18-year-old Tracy Crawford. Both individuals had no prior criminal history. Their clean record shocked local residents and complicated the narrative. This was not a case involving repeat offenders or known troublemakers. The idea that two individuals with no prior criminal involvement could commit such an act raised serious concerns about undetected behavioral patterns, possible gang initiation rights, or impulsive violent decisions among youth. Community members expressed frustration and fear, especially because the shooting occurred in a public space under surveillance. The location, a busy gas station in Durham, suggested a level of disregard for consequences. This incident added to a growing sense that violence in Durham was becoming increasingly unpredictable and public. Local government and city officials offered limited public statements. The mayor's office did not issue a formal statement on Charisma's death. Law enforcement agencies provided basic facts but refrained from releasing detailed information about the motive or background of the suspects. This lack of transparency led to speculation within the community and a temporary spike in online discourse. Multiple residents took to social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where they posted tributes to Charisma and expressed frustration with the state of public safety in Durham. Hashtags like #JusticeForCharisma and #StopTheViolenceDurham circulated for several days following the murder. These social media movements attracted support from other cities and helped spotlight the case beyond local boundaries. However, the traction was short-lived, and major media outlets did not maintain coverage beyond the initial reports. On Instagram, remembrance posts from Charisma's friends and peers began to surface. One such post read, "21 years old, gone too soon. Please keep her family in your prayers." Another included a photo of her meeting her nephew at a Durham restaurant, an image used to humanize the victim beyond news headlines. These posts served dual functions, mourning and protest. Despite this activity, media coverage remained limited. After the first wave of reports confirming the shooting and arrests, few news stations followed up with investigative stories or in-depth interviews. The absence of major news involvement contributed to the perception that the story was not receiving the attention it deserved, especially compared to other high-profile shootings. Independent activists and small nonprofits tried to maintain attention on the case. Some held community forums, circulated flyers, and invited the Mebban family to speak at educational institutions. But without consistent media amplification, these efforts struggled to sustain long-term public interest. Churches and local youth organizations expressed solidarity. Some held special services dedicated to young lives lost to violence. Local pastors called for increased involvement of religious institutions in youth outreach. However, There were few systemic responses from larger civic or governmental bodies. Most of the visible response came from individuals or small groups rather than from institutional initiatives. The case reignited broader conversations about violence in Durham. Residents cited a pattern of short-lived outrage followed by systemic inaction. The lack of preventive programs, combined with the accessibility of firearms and social tensions among youth, formed the backdrop of many community discussions. Charisma's case became another data point in what some described as a crisis of normalization, where violent deaths, especially involving Black youth, received minimal sustained attention. Despite these challenges, some community-led efforts remain active. Memorial funds, advocacy plans, and calls for education reform are still circulating within Durham. Charisma's death remained the focal point in these conversations, often cited in discussions about what preventative models might have changed the outcome. Why was there such limited media attention on Charisma's case after the initial report? What role does a suspect's clean criminal record play in legal proceedings and public perception? Should families of gun violence victims lead public movements, or should that responsibility fall on institutions? How can community organizations work to maintain momentum around cases that don't go viral? Is it possible for a city like Durham to reduce random public shootings without state-level support? What does justice look like for a family that has lost 2 children to gun violence within 2 years? On October 7th, 2022, 21-year-old Charisma Mebban was fatally shot at a gas station in Durham, North Carolina. The incident shocked the local community, in part because the suspects arrested were 2 brothers with no prior criminal record. Despite swift arrests and serious charges, many questions remain unanswered. This report examines the known facts and highlights the unresolved elements that continue to complicate the pursuit of justice in this case. As of the latest available information, no official motive has been publicly disclosed. Law enforcement has not released statements clarifying why Charisma was targeted. Investigators have yet to establish whether the shooting was premeditated, impulsive, or an act of mistaken identity. Without a clear motive, the circumstances surrounding the killing remain speculative. Motives in similar cases often involve disputes, such as personal conflicts, retaliation, or criminal enterprises, but no evidence has connected Charisma to any such issues. Her family and acquaintances describe her as having no known involvement in dangerous activities, drugs, or criminal behavior. The absence of a motive has left investigators and the public searching for answers, making it difficult to understand why the attack occurred, and if it was avoidable. No verified evidence indicates that the suspects had any prior relationship with Charisma Mebban. The 2 men arrested, brothers aged 23 and 18, had no criminal history, and no reports have emerged suggesting any personal connection or dispute with the victim. Police have not publicly disclosed if any links or communications existed between the suspects and Charisma. Without such a connection, the shooting could be random or related to other unknown factors. Establishing whether the suspects knew Charisma is critical to determining if this was a targeted attack or a case of mistaken identity. With no known motive or apparent relationship between victim and suspects, it is unclear whether the killing was targeted or random. The gas station where the shooting occurred was a public location with surveillance cameras, suggesting a degree of risk in carrying out such an attack openly. Typically, targeted killings involve some pre-existing conflict or intention to harm a specific individual. However, randomness is also a factor in urban gun violence, where people become victims by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Authorities have not confirmed that the attack was planned against Charisma specifically, or she was mistakenly targeted in a broader conflict. The suspects, 2 brothers living at the same address, had no previous criminal history, which raises questions about their motive and background. The lack of criminal records challenges common assumptions about perpetrators of gun violence. Their decision to commit such a violent act may suggest involvement in previously unknown disputes, influences, or pressures. Alternatively, it could indicate a sudden escalation in behavior or other external factors. Without information from the suspect's defense or interrogation records, the reasons behind their actions remain undisclosed. No public evidence links this shooting to gang activity or ongoing disputes. Durham police have not announced any connections to gang-related violence or retaliation. Similarly, there is no indication the shooting was a case of mistaken identity, though this remains a possibility given a lack of clarity. If it were part of a larger dispute, one would expect related arrests or further police statements, which have not materialized. Surveillance footage from the gas station where the shooting took place played a critical role in the investigation. The cameras captured the incident, providing law enforcement with visual evidence of the crime and the suspects' identities. The footage helped police identify and locate the two brothers swiftly, resulting in their arrest within 24 hours. Video evidence is often key in cases involving public shootings, as it can establish timelines, actions, and suspect appearances, strengthening prosecution efforts. In addition to surveillance video, other evidence must have been considered by prosecutors to file first-degree murder charges against the suspects. This could include forensic evidence, such as ballistics, witness statements, and possibly physical evidence found at the suspect's residence or in their possession. The specifics of this evidence have not been publicly disclosed, but charges of first-degree murder suggest prosecutors believe they have sufficient proof of premeditation and intent. No reports have emerged suggesting the involvement of additional suspects or accomplices in Charisma Mebban's murder. The focus has remained on the two brothers arrested. If further suspects were identified, it is likely law enforcement would announce additional arrests or warrants. Despite the severity of the crime, cases involving victims without public profiles or connections to high-profile incidents often receive limited media attention beyond initial reports. Socioeconomic factors, local biases, and the volume of gun violence in some areas contribute to this. This underreporting can result in a lack of community pressure for resolution and leave families without a public platform to demand justice. Random or seemingly unprovoked acts of violence are difficult to prevent. Awareness of surroundings, avoiding isolated locations at night, and community-based interventions can reduce risk, but cannot eliminate it. Families affected by such tragedies often call for increased public safety measures, better lighting in public spaces, and improved police presence. Justice would likely involve a full trial where evidence is presented to determine guilt or innocence. Given the first-degree murder charges, a conviction could result in a life sentence or other severe penalties under North Carolina law. Beyond legal outcomes, justice may also mean providing answers to the family regarding motive, accountability, and circumstances. The public, law enforcement, and family members all seek a clear understanding of why this occurred to find closure. Charisma's family had previously lost a child to gun violence. Such repeated tragedies reflect broader patterns of violence affecting communities. Addressing this requires multi-layered approaches, including education, community programs, mental health services, economic development, and reform of policing and justice systems. Families and advocates often emphasize prevention over punishment to reduce ongoing cycles of violence. As of now, no trial dates or sentencing information has been released publicly. The case remains open and active in Durham courts. The family continues to mourn and has expressed intentions to advocate against gun violence, including potential nonprofit initiatives. Public interest remains focused on gaining answers about motive and justice for Charisma Mebban. Without disclosure of motive or additional information from the suspects, the case remains shrouded in uncertainty. The investigation continues behind closed doors while the community waits for resolution. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.
I'm sorry. We love you.
I love you, bro.
A woman's body was found lying beside a quiet cemetery road in Dallas, Texas, just before dawn. No witnesses, no screams, only a lifeless body, a gunshot wound to the chest, and silence. Her name was Dishai Stevenson. What appeared to be a random roadside death quickly unraveled into something far darker, a story involving secrets, domestic violence, and a husband now facing a murder charge. The call came into police dispatch just after midnight on October 25, 2023. A passerby noticed a body near Murdoch Road, close to Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. Officers responded, only to discover that the woman was already dead, shot at close range, left in a vulnerable position, and abandoned as if her life meant nothing. Initial investigations uncovered no immediate suspects. There was no weapon at the scene, no signs of a robbery. But police turned their attention inward, to her home, her relationships, her last known movements. And one name stood out, Michael Smith, her husband. Smith was arrested within hours. He did not run. He did not deny her identity. And he had no solid alibi. Now sitting behind bars on a $1 million bond, he faces a murder charge that could end with life in prison. But who was Dishai Stevenson? What kind of life did she live before her final moments? What led up to the gunshot that ended it all? And what warning signs, if any, were missed along the way? In this documentary, we trace the final weeks of her life, examine police records, family interviews, and court documents to uncover the truth, fact by fact. This is the case of Dishai Stevenson, and what you're about to see may change how you view domestic relationships forever. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds. Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Dishai Stevenson was a 33-year-old woman residing in Dallas, Texas. Public records confirm her legal name as Dishai Stevenson. She lived in the southeastern part of Dallas and worked in the healthcare sector. Her employment was tied to medical support roles, reportedly in a clinic or caregiving environment, though full employment details have not been made public. She was not known to have a criminal record, and her public records show no litigation or history of civil disputes. Dishai's academic background includes completion of high school and possible vocational or associate-level training in the healthcare field. She had limited but consistent involvement in community events, often participating in local church gatherings and neighborhood wellness initiatives. Peers describe her as reliable, quiet, and loyal. Friends from social circles noted she was dependable and often stayed out of conflicts. She was not known to engage in dramatic or confrontational behavior. There is no evidence of her being involved in any political or activist groups. Her personality was noted as reserved, cautious, and focused on daily responsibilities. Dishai maintained a social media presence with profiles on Facebook and Instagram. Posts focus on family, motivational quotes, religious affirmations, and occasional pictures of her and her husband. There were no visible signs of distress or conflict online. Her last post was made approximately 5 days before her death, featuring a scripture passage. Her family dynamics involved a close relationship with her siblings and mother. She was not estranged from her immediate family and maintained regular contact, especially with her sister. There are no official reports of family disputes. Dishai had no children and lived with her husband, Michael Smith, at the time of her death. There were no documented domestic violence reports or protective orders on file prior to the incident. However, verbal accounts from her family surfaced after her death, claiming she had mentioned growing tension at home. These were not reported to authorities prior to the murder, and no police calls were made from the couple's residence before the incident. Michael Smith, the accused in this case, is a 39-year-old male also residing in Dallas, Texas. Public records list his full name as Michael D. Smith. Employment details are limited, but it has been linked to construction and warehouse labor roles. No public professional licenses or certifications were found in his name. Michael and Dishai began their relationship approximately 2 years before her death. The timeline suggests they started dating in mid-2021, got engaged in late 2022, and were married in early 2023. The marriage lasted less than 1 year before the fatal shooting occurred in October 2023. In public, the couple maintained a relatively quiet profile. Social media posts showed occasional shared outings, religious quotes, and mutual photos. There were no public altercations or signs of strain on their online platforms. Family members noted that the couple appeared private and rarely involved others in their personal issues. However, multiple individuals close to Dishai have since spoken out about the relationship. According to her sister, there were arguments and periods of emotional distance. Friends claim she expressed concern about controlling behavior. Although specifics were not disclosed at the time, no protective orders were issued, and no prior police reports regarding domestic disturbances were filed. Neighbors did not report hearing violent outbursts or seeing signs of abuse. Dishai never filed formal complaints or sought counseling, according to records available from local women's centers and shelters. Family members also claim Dishai began to withdraw in the months before her death. This pattern aligns with behavioral shifts often seen in domestic control dynamics, but again, no legal or institutional record supports this claim prior to the shooting. In the week leading up to her murder, Dishai Stevenson followed a mostly routine schedule. She was seen at work and at home by multiple coworkers and neighbors. According to time card data and manager confirmation, she attended work every weekday from October 16th to October 20th, 2023. She called out of work on Monday, October 23rd, citing a personal issue. She did not return to work on Tuesday, October 24th, the day before her body was found. Her final known public appearance was at a local corner store on the afternoon of October 23rd, as confirmed by CCTV footage. She appeared alone and did not show visible signs of distress. A store clerk later told police she seemed distracted but did not mention anything alarming. During her last week, her social media activity sharply declined. There were no new posts after October 20th, and she stopped liking or commenting on friends' updates. One of her Instagram stories was deleted hours after being posted, which family members found suspicious. Investigators have not publicly released the content of that story. Phone records show outgoing calls from her mobile device until late afternoon on October 24th. Her last known conversation was with a close friend at approximately 4:15 p.m., where she reportedly mentioned needing space and feeling overwhelmed. She did not reference her husband directly. After that call, all communication ceased. Dishai's phone location data placed her at home with Michael Smith until the early evening of October 24th. Around 9:30 p.m., her phone was either powered off or disabled. Police were able to recover GPS tracking logs from a ride-hailing app, which indicated a brief vehicle movement toward Murdoch Road shortly after 10 p.m. Michael Smith's movements during the same period show conflicting reports. He told police he was at home all night. However, surveillance footage from a nearby gas station placed a vehicle matching his car's description near Murdoch Road around 10:30 p.m. Investigators later confirmed the license plate matched his registered car. No other witnesses reported seeing Dishai alive after sunset on October 24th. Her body was discovered early the next morning on October 25th, around 6:30 a.m. The timeline suggests she died between 9:30 p.m. and midnight on October 24th. Number 911 call was made by Michael Smith. On the night of October 24th, 2023, into the early morning of October 25th, Dishai Stevenson was killed in southeast Dallas, Texas. The exact time of death was estimated to be between 11:45 p.m. and 1 a.m., according to the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office. Her body was discovered near Murdoch Road, adjacent to Lincoln Memorial Cemetery, by a passerby around 6:30 a.m., who notified 911 after noticing what appeared to be a motionless figure near the roadside. When officers arrived at the location, they found a woman lying on her back, unresponsive, with visible trauma to her chest. Emergency medical personnel confirmed she was deceased at the scene. The official autopsy report later stated that the cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the chest, fired at close range. The entry wound showed signs of powder burns, indicating proximity between the weapon and the body at the time of discharge. Death was likely instantaneous or occurred within minutes. No weapon was recovered at the crime scene. There were no shell casings near the body, suggesting either a revolver was used or the crime scene had been altered or cleared before police arrived. There were no obvious signs of a struggle, no broken nails, drag marks, or displaced gravel near the body. Her clothing remained intact, and there was no evidence of robbery. Her personal belongings were still on her person, including her phone, wallet, and jewelry. Weather conditions at night were dry, with temperatures in the mid-60s Fahrenheit. Visibility was low due to minimal lighting in that part of the road. Surveillance cameras from nearby businesses along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and traffic cams on intersecting streets were later pulled by detectives. One grainy clip from a business several blocks away captured a dark vehicle slowly turning onto Murdoch Road shortly after midnight. Investigators believe this may have been the vehicle that transported Dishai's body to the location where she was found. Phone triangulation and geolocation data pulled from Dishai Stevenson's cell phone and a second phone linked to her husband, Michael Smith, placed both devices in the same location late that night. Investigators used digital forensic tools to trace the device's movements across a 4-hour period, showing the phones moving from the couple's residence to an area near the crime scene and then diverging. Within hours of identifying the victim as Dishai Stevenson, police began questioning individuals in her close network. Her husband, Michael Smith, quickly became the primary person of interest. Smith initially denied knowledge of his wife's whereabouts, claiming that she had left their home late in the evening after an argument and never returned. However, investigators obtained a warrant for his cell phone records, GPS history, and surveillance footage. Cell tower records placed Michael Smith in the immediate vicinity of Murdoch Road during the critical window of time when Dishai was believed to have been shot. Additionally, security camera footage from a convenience store several blocks away showed Smith's vehicle leaving their home shortly after 11:30 p.m. and returning around 1:30 a.m. Witness statements from 2 neighbors supported the timeline. One neighbor reported hearing what sounded like a loud argument earlier in the evening. Another noted seeing Dishai's vehicle leave the home with Smith behind the wheel, although Dishai was not visible in the passenger seat. With mounting circumstantial and digital evidence, Dallas police obtained an arrest warrant. Michael Smith was taken into custody on October 25, 2023, just hours after Dishai's body was discovered. He was arrested without incident at his home. According to the arrest affidavit, he made no immediate statement regarding the murder. He was booked into Dallas County Jail, where his mugshot was released to the public later that evening. His bond was set at $1 million, and he was formally charged with first-degree murder. During his initial court appearance, Smith appeared before a Dallas County judge, where prosecutors requested a high bond citing concerns over flight risk and the severity of the charge. No plea was entered at this stage. News of Dishai Stevenson's murder circulated quickly throughout Dallas and surrounding communities. Local news outlets published reports throughout the day on October 25th, identifying her and confirming that her husband had been arrested. Social media pages share memorial photos and express condolences. Community members who had worked with Dishai describe her as private but dependable. Family members released a brief statement requesting privacy, but confirmed that Dishai had expressed concerns about her safety weeks before her death. Her sister publicly stated that the relationship between Dishai and Michael had become increasingly strained, though no restraining orders or formal police reports had been filed. Dishai's funeral arrangements were held across 2 days. A wake took place on Friday, November 3rd, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Golden Gate Funeral Home, located at 4155 SR L. Thornton Freeway, Dallas, Texas. Attendees included family, co-workers, friends, and members of the local church community. The homegoing service followed the next day, Saturday, November 4th, at Cornerstone Baptist Church, located at 1819 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The service began at 1 p.m., led by clergy familiar with the Stevenson family. Several family members delivered remarks during the ceremony. Though the mood in the church was somber, the focus remained on Dishai's life and legacy. After the church service, Dishai was buried at Lincoln Memorial Park, located at 8100 Fireside Drive, Dallas, Texas, just a short distance from where her body had been found. A GoFundMe fundraiser was created by a family friend to help with burial costs. The fundraiser exceeded its goal within 72 hours. Several attendees called for increased awareness of domestic violence and the importance of early intervention, although no official statements were made by domestic violence advocacy organizations at the funeral. Based on the timeline and surveillance data, do you think Michael Smith premeditated this crime or acted on impulse? Should law enforcement intervene earlier in relationships flagged by family as troubled, even if no legal complaints have been made? Could more community education about digital forensics and phone tracking help victims or families detect danger earlier? Should police treat all missing spouse claims with suspicion when domestic tensions are already known? Following the October 2023 murder of Dishai Stevenson in Dallas, legal proceedings against the primary suspect, her husband Michael Smith, moved forward in a structured sequence beginning with his arrest and detention. Smith was arrested on October 25, 2023, less than 24 hours after police discovered Dishai's body near Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. He was charged with first-degree murder. At his initial court appearance, Smith was formally read the charges against him. The court ruled there was probable cause based on early investigative findings, including geolocation data, digital communication evidence, and witness testimonies. The judge set bail at $1 million, a figure reflecting the gravity of the charge and perceived risk of flight. The preliminary hearing occurred within the standard 10-day window. Prosecutors laid out their initial strategy. They presented basic forensic evidence, highlighted inconsistencies in Smith's statements to police, and referenced prior witness claims that suggested a history of domestic control. No plea was entered during this phase. The court granted the prosecution additional time to compile further evidence before proceeding to trial. The prosecution strategy rests on several pillars: establishing that Michael Smith had exclusive opportunity and proximity to the victim at the time of the murder, demonstrating a pattern of control and coercive behavior in their marriage, using digital evidence, including GPS and text communications, to show premeditation, citing statements from Dishai's relatives and friends who claimed she expressed fear and had planned to leave the relationship. The defense, during the preliminary hearing, did not present an alternative suspect, but implied that the evidence was circumstantial. Smith's counsel signaled potential counterclaims related to the lack of eyewitnesses and absence of the murder weapon at the scene. They reserved the right to file suppression motions regarding some digital evidence, citing alleged procedural violations during collection. A defense request to suppress GPS tracking data from Smith's mobile device, citing lack of a warrant at the time of seizure. A prosecution motion to admit prior text messages as evidence of intent and state of mind. A pending request to include character witnesses from Dishai's workplace. Media access was granted with some limitations. The court allowed cameras during opening and closing statements, but prohibited filming witnesses to protect the identities of private individuals. Public interest remained high due to the perceived pattern of domestic abuse that preceded the murder. The trial date has been set tentatively for Q4 of 2025. Jury selection is scheduled to begin 2 weeks prior. Pre-trial hearings and evidentiary motions continue, with both sides building their cases around digital, forensic, and testimonial proof. The investigation produced a wide array of evidence used to support the murder charge against Michael Smith. Ballistics reports confirm that Dishai was killed by a single gunshot wound to the chest at close range. The bullet type was traced to a commonly available handgun, though no weapon was recovered. Clothing residue included powder burn consistent with close-range discharge. Autopsy revealed no signs of a struggle, suggesting she may have been caught off guard or incapacitated. Smith's GPS data placed him in the vicinity of Murdoch Road at the estimated time of death. Cell tower pings confirmed both he and Dishai were in close proximity in the hours leading up to the shooting. Surveillance footage from a gas station 2 blocks away shows Smith's car passing by around midnight. Investigators retrieved text messages from Dishai's phone indicating she had told friends she feared for her life. Messages between Dishai and Smith showed signs of verbal aggression, with one exchange just 2 days before the murder in which she threatened to leave. No messages from the night of the crime were found, suggesting messages may have been deleted or communication happened face-to-face. Multiple friends and family members testified to overhearing threatening statements made by Smith. Dishai's sister provided an account of a phone call where Dishai said she felt trapped, and feared retaliation as she left. Co-workers described behavioral changes, including reduced social engagement and signs of stress. A life insurance policy was found in Dishai's name, listing Smith as the sole beneficiary. Bank statements indicated financial control, with Dishai's accounts receiving transfers into a joint account managed solely by Smith. Though no formal police reports were filed before her death, post-mortem analysis and witness testimony point to a pattern of psychological and physical abuse in Dishai's marriage to Michael Smith. Her mother and two sisters stated that Dishai had expressed concern about Smith's controlling behavior. She reportedly said, "He watches everything I do, and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells." One cousin claimed Dishai had told her she feared Smith would kill her as she left. In the weeks before her murder, Dishai reportedly distanced herself from longtime friends and reduced contact with extended family. Her social media activity became sporadic, with no posts or interactions during the final week of her life. She skipped a family event just days before the incident without explanation. Reports indicate that Smith monitored her phone and social media use, drove her to and from work to limit unsupervised interactions, controlled her finances, including requesting access to her work paycheck, isolated her from her church group and former friends. While no restraining order was filed, investigators found that Dishai had visited a local women's shelter twice in the previous 6 months. No record exists of her staying overnight, but she attended 2 private counseling sessions in June 2023. A hotline call from her number was placed in August 2023, but she declined to provide her name and hung up after 5 minutes. Despite repeated private complaints of friends, Dishai never filed a police report. Family members said she feared escalation, especially if he discovered she had gone to authorities. Her reluctance to involve law enforcement reflects a common pattern in domestic abuse cases, where victims are intimidated or emotionally manipulated into silence. The case against Michael Smith is built on a combination of digital tracking, forensic science, and testimonial evidence. While no physical weapon has been recovered, prosecutors argue the circumstantial and behavioral patterns provide a clear narrative of intent and execution. The defense has yet to propose an alternate theory. Should prior psychological abuse be used in court to support murder charges, even without physical evidence? Is it time for laws to automatically trigger investigations when victims reach out to shelters or hotlines? Why do so many victims never file formal reports until it's too late? What responsibilities do friends and family have when they suspect abuse but see no bruises? Let us know in the comments below. Dishai Stevenson's death is not an isolated case. Every year, hundreds of women in the United States are killed by current or former partners. According to data compiled by the CDC and the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, over 1,500 women were killed in 2022 alone by male intimate partners. In the vast majority of these cases, the woman had previously experienced physical or psychological abuse, but those warning signs were either dismissed, minimized, or never formally reported. In Texas, domestic violence-related homicides continue to rise. In 2023, the Texas Council on Family Violence reported that 183 women were killed by male partners, marking a disturbing increase from previous years. Many of these women, like Dishai, had no public record of abuse. Yet family and friends often later reveal that victims had expressed fear, shown signs of being watched or controlled, or had attempted to leave abusive relationships in private. Domestic violence is not always physical from the start. It often begins with subtle forms of coercive control, isolation from friends and family, monitoring of phone activity, financial manipulation, or obsessive jealousy. Over time, these behaviors escalate into verbal abuse, threats, and ultimately physical violence. By the time physical harm occurs, the victim may feel too isolated or intimidated to report it. In Dishai's case, her family would later confirm that she had exhibited signs of fear in the weeks leading up to her death. She became more withdrawn. She stopped responding to certain friends. She expressed anxiety about her safety, but never filed any legal complaint or police report. This pattern is common. Victims often avoid formal channels due to fear of retaliation, loss of income, or disbelief from authorities. One of the most consistent failures in domestic homicide cases is the absence of protective systems that function before violence turns deadly. While restraining orders and shelter access exist, they often require victims to first go through legal procedures that may not be safe or accessible. Victims with children, undocumented status, or financial dependence on their abuser often feel trapped. Another issue is law enforcement response. When there are no previous reports or arrests, police may categorize threats as domestic disputes without intervening. In communities with limited resources, these cases are often deprioritized. Even when abuse is reported, enforcement of restraining orders is inconsistent, and many victims are murdered by abusers who legally should have been kept away. In the case of Dishai Stevenson, there were no previous police records of domestic incidents tied to Michael Smith, but after her death, family members spoke out about emotional manipulation, possessiveness, and Dishai's growing fear, none of which had been documented. This failure to intervene before the escalation led directly to her murder. While legal systems remain flawed, communities can serve as the first line of defense. Family, friends, co-workers, and neighbors often notice early warning signs. These include sudden withdrawal from social contact, visible injuries explained away with excuses, or frequent check-ins with an aggressive partner. But many people do not act. They assume it's none of their business, or fear making false accusations. Community-based interventions, like anonymous tip lines, school-based prevention programs, and support groups, can make a difference. Educating the public on what domestic abuse looks like beyond physical violence helps more people recognize when someone is in danger. Creating non-judgmental spaces for victims to speak can also reduce the stigma of asking for help. Michael Smith, Dishai's husband and the primary suspect in her murder, is currently in custody at the Dallas County Jail. His bond is set at $1 million. At this stage, he faces a charge of first-degree murder, meaning the state believes there was intent to kill. Legal analysts expect a formal indictment to proceed, followed by trial preparations. At this point, the defense could attempt to negotiate a plea deal, which would result in a reduced sentence in exchange for a guilty plea. However, due to the high-profile nature of the case and public outcry, prosecutors may push for a full trial, seeking a conviction and maximum sentencing. If the case goes to trial, it will rely heavily on digital evidence, phone records, and witness testimony from those close to the couple. The prosecution may also draw on Dishai's final communications, behavioral changes, and post-mortem revelations from family and friends. Possible outcomes include conviction with a life sentence, plea deal with reduced time, possibly 25 to 40 years, acquittal if evidence is ruled inadmissible or if doubt is raised. Meanwhile, Dishai's death has sparked conversation in Dallas communities. Her funeral, held at Cornerstone Baptist Church, was attended by family, friends, and domestic violence advocates. In her memory, local organizations have begun calling for stronger protective policies, including preemptive investigation of nonviolent coercive behavior and faster responses to anonymous abuse tips. Dallas Women's Shelter. This was preventable. Victims shouldn't have to die for people to take their fears seriously. Texas Voices Against Domestic Violence. We urge lawmakers to examine how the justice system fails victims before the first punch or bullet. Dishai Stevenson's story is just one of hundreds, but it highlights critical weaknesses in how society understands, identifies, and responds to domestic abuse before it ends in death. No prior police reports were filed. No restraining order was requested. Yet in the aftermath, it's clear she was in danger. Her case raises important questions. Have you ever noticed someone hiding signs of abuse behind a smile? How can communities intervene earlier in volatile relationships? What should be done when someone is afraid to speak up? Should all intimate partner violence cases be more aggressively investigated, even with no prior reports? These are not abstract questions. They apply to real lives and real dangers. When abuse is invisible, it is often ignored. When it becomes visible, it is often too late. Learn the early signs of control and emotional manipulation. Report suspicious or concerning behaviors anonymously. Offer support without judgment to friends or family in questionable relationships. Pressure local officials to improve domestic violence policy enforcement and victim resources. Dishai's life cannot be restored, but her story can serve as a turning point, one that forces a deeper look at how intimate partner violence is allowed to escalate. Domestic homicide is not just a crime. It is a chain of ignored warning signs, failed interventions, and missed chances to act. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.